So we'll get started here. Can you describe a bit about growing up in El Salvador and in the United States? What the difference is,
Uh, growing up in El Salvador was a bit of an interesting time of my life. I was born in '86, and from what my family tells me, there was a civil war going on, so it was very rough times. My mother decided to pursue the American dream just like everybody else. So in 1994, I believe, she managed to get to the United States, by which means I have no idea because I dare not ask. So by that time, I was living with my grandmother and my very large family of 15 members in a single household. So you could definitely tell it was very hectic. It was mostly my grandmother, my grandfather, my aunts and uncles that I was raised with, or by rather. And by the age of 15, my mother finally pushed all the paperwork through to get me to the United States. And I flew in July 11th, 2001, which was a very interesting day in itself because that was my very first time flying. So
Oh, wow.
it was very thrilling, very exciting. And when I got here, it was a whole new world. Now, at the time, I wasn't sure what the American dream was, so I didn't really chase that. Instead, I chased a little bit of schooling. I decided to, actually learn the language so I could better communicate. My mother put me through school, so I went to Rivera High School in 2001, ninth grade, and then I got a job at the age of 16. And it took me about 8 months to learn English, so it was one of those challenges that I overcame with a little bit of difficulty. And I graduated in 2005 when I decided to join the Marine Corps.
Okay. And you mentioned that your mom came up to pursue the American dream, but you don't have anything more about that? Like, did she have something specific why she came? Just the American dream?
I don't think she was even sure about what the American dream really was. All she said was the American dream. I'm assuming to her it was a better job, better opportunities to actually grow.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if she got all of that. So.
Okay. And how old were you when you came up?
15.
You were 15.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What makes a person born in El Salvador want to join the United States military?
Plenty of reasons, actually. If you look at the immigration side, then you will figure that they want citizenship, and that is one of the ways to get it. Yes, it is true. However, that was not my main motive. The reason why I joined personally was because I felt the duty to repay my dues to a country that gave me all the opportunities and accepted me as one of their own. So the best way to do that was to join the military. That was my number one. Number two, I didn't think at the time that I was going to go to college, just like every other kid that joins right out of high school. So I figure, why not? Go to the military, serve a country, apply for citizenship, get a really good education, well, not really education, more like training, and be part of something larger than myself.
Right.
So
did you
reasons.
plan to make the military a full career or just a stepping stone to?
At the beginning, it was just a stepping stone. But after being in for 4 years, I looked at my options based on the job that I was doing while in the military. I realized that it wasn't enough to come out and be a better part of society as a whole, to be actually beneficial and actually contribute rather than take away. So I decided to re-enlist for another 4 years, change my job to something a little more meaningful.
Change your MOS?
Yes.
Okay. What was the reaction from your family and friends when you mentioned joining the military, or maybe specifically the Marines? Did you know you were going to join the Marines right away?
No. The Marines was kind of a hiccup. I actually wanted to go to the Army first, but the recruiter kind of took a little too long to give me an answer back. And the Marine Corps recruiter was just there, and he talked to me, he gave me all the options. I actually liked the idea better. The way he presented it was very, very tempting. And when I brought it up to my family, my mother and father were torn. My mother was absolutely no idea, hell no, don't do it. Trust me, it was very dramatic. My father, on the other hand, meant a few words. Definitely said, if that's what you want to do, then do it. If that's what you feel like you need to do, do it. Friends, they were all against it. Of course, they were. I believe they were influenced by the generation of Vietnam era. Everybody's like a baby killer, and that's how you're gonna end up being, and you're never gonna turn back the same. And I hate the military, so I decided to change friends quickly.
Oh.
If they weren't supporting, then they weren't friends. So I decided to join against pretty much all odds. The only one that was rooting for me was my dad. So.
And what was your main goal when you enlisted? Was it, you mentioned a little bit about education and how you didn't think you'd go to college. Was that ever on the horizon, going to college, or
never?
No?
My main point was do my 4 years, do my duty, and get out. Come back and figure out what the next plan is.
And you had anticipated that you'd get skills in the military that you could use on the outside, so to speak.
Yes, that was definitely a plus, but I realized while I was still in that those skills, in my mind, were not going to be enough.
What was your initial MOS?
I was 0151 administration, so I was the paper pusher.
Oh, and then you changed to computer science?
Yes, 2008, I sent out my re-enlistment contract and I changed my MOS to 0651 communications, specifically data. So I was a data network specialist.
Sounds fancy.
I know. They changed their name to cyber something as soon as I got out. So fancy words.
All mean the same, though, right?
Exactly.
Can you describe your experiences in boot camp, or just some of your experiences in boot camp?
Boot camp was interesting, of course, just like anything else in the military. First, confusion, no idea, hectic. Definitely needed to learn a lot. At times, it seemed like there was too much to learn, and my brain was about to explode. All the rules, all the regulations, all the formalities, keeping with the schedule, knowing exactly what to do, how to do it, when to do it. Luckily, there were a lot of people that, in a somewhat friendly way, reminded me to do it. After a few weeks, confusion kind of started slowing down. I was getting a grip of what was going on. Didn't really know the schedule, so I was always on my tiptoes, which kind of helped because it made the time go by a lot faster. As far as my rack mate or the people to the left and right of me, I still had no idea who they were or what they were up to or the reasons why they joined, which I realized we're not the same yet. We're all in this together. So I figured keep pushing, just get it over with, and move on to the next task.
And how long is boot
3
camp?
months.
3 months?
Yes.
So you had a long time to learn all that.
Mm-hmm.
Was there ever a time during boot camp that made you question your decision to join the military?
No.
And why not?
I knew right away that it was going to be tough. I heard all the stories. Everybody made comments about, oh, you remember watching Full Metal Jacket? It's kind of like that. And I was like, well, let me be the judge of that. Let me decide for myself. I'm going to be the one going through it. Of course, you're not going to have the same experience as the guy next to you. So I didn't regret anything, to be honest. I knew what I was getting into. I knew that it was going to be tough and I was going to hate it at times. And I was already mentally prepared for all of that. It was just another Monday for me.
Wow. How has your time overseas changed or affirmed your decision to join the military?
Now, is that referring to deployments? Because I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan for 2 years.
Anything overseas. I mean, did it make you more strongly for the military or less?
Stayed the same, to be honest. While I was in Japan, it was a great time that I had there. Learned a lot. Saw the different ways of the military, the different units, and the different leadership styles that you encounter throughout your time. So to me, it was all about taking the best, getting rid of the worst, and every day is a new day. So don't take anything personally, it's just business. Now, when I deployed, my first deployment was to Iraq in 2006, and that was a bit of a surprise because I wasn't on the schedule. But
I'm sorry, you weren't on the schedule to be deployed?
yes,
Okay.
until the very last minute. I was 3 months into the unit when they decided we're not going to take this guy, we're going to take you instead.
Oh, wow.
So I pretty much had 48 hours to get everything together, go to the training, and then ship out.
I'm sorry, so there was additional training to be deployed?
Yes, you have to do what, I can't remember what it stands for. It's like pre-deployment training. It's called the PTP training. It's about a month worth of exercises that you do prior to deployment. May not be the same thing that you will be experiencing while you're out there, but at least I'll try to give you the basics as much as possible. So I had to go through all that, which wasn't too bad. We did that training in Camp Fuji in Japan, and then we deployed to Iraq. But at the time I was with an engineering unit, so it was a lot different than the infantry or artillery, or we were the guys that brought all the logistics.
Right.
So it was interesting. I didn't really get to see the whole country per se.
Of Iraq or Japan?
Iraq, while I was deployed, but I was out 6 days out of the week doing patrols, a lot of convoys. Even though I was administration by trade, they didn't really need me in the office, so they put me in the quick reaction force, which was pretty much in charge of going out, securing convoys, and provide security for the commander whenever he wanted to go out, and react to anybody that needed help.
So you'd be called out to different places?
Yes.
Okay. We have more questions on that a little bit further on, so I'll move on with these and then we'll go back to that.
Okay.
How does your El Salvadorian background affect your experience as a Marine?
I knew that once going in, everybody was going to be the same. So I decided not to let anything affect me affect that at all. I was a Marine. I wasn't an El Salvadorian. I wasn't anything else. I was just a Marine. And that was the one thing that I drilled in my own head from day one. I understand that a lot of people have, especially in the Hispanic community, have a lot of pride of where they came from, of where they belonged. But at that time, I belonged to the Marine Corps. I belonged to the military. I belonged to the people to the left and right of me. I didn't have time to think of anything else, because in my head, if I started thinking of that, then I was going to alienate myself and separate myself from the group, and I wasn't going to be part of it. And if I do that, then I wouldn't be doing my part, and somebody else will have to carry that burden.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I wanted to associate myself with my background, I thought it would be more beneficial if I didn't. So I just crushed it out.
That sounds like a very Marine kind of philosophy. Is that something you got from the Marines, or that's something you went into the Marines knowing you were going to do?
I knew I was going to do that. I did a lot of research prior to joining. I did a lot of talking face-to-face with people that were in for 20 years, were in for 4, that would just got out of boot camp, and all my recruiters. I talked to a lot of people, trying to gather as much information as possible. So I had a better idea going in instead of just going in blind, because
Right.
to me that was just a losing battle.
Right.
So I want to be prepared.
Okay. Okay. You described a little bit about your MOS as a paper pusher.
Yes.
Can you describe a little bit more about what you may have done either in Japan or in Iraq as part of your MOS, or your new MOS, what you did? Does that make any sense?
While I was in Japan, my main role was just to be an administrative clerk It was pretty much brought in any request that came through, prepare orders for deployment, prepare travel tickets for people that were getting out of the island, and because they got orders, awards, promotions, pretty much all the human resources. I guess it will be the equivalent in the civilian sector. Making sure everybody got paid on time, making sure that if they had any issues, that everything will be taken care of. So those were my main responsibilities. Once I got to Iraq, sorry. Once I got to Iraq, I was taking all the promotions. That was my main concern. But a week into it, 2 weeks into it, they were like, hey, we need to stay in this group. You're going to it. Somebody else is going to pick up promotions. So they sent me over. I got a 1 week course on machine guns and convoys and vehicles, all the vehicles that we were using, and then off we went.
And then you left Iraq, and there was a period of time between Iraq and Afghanistan?
Yes.
And did you go back to doing the promotions and all that?
When I got back from Afghanistan, when I got back from Iraq in 2007, I went back to Japan, and by that time I was the only administrative clerk that we had in the battalion, aside from my gunnery sergeant that was the admin chief. All the other clerks that we had were from different MOSs, such as water purification, welders, motor T drivers. So I had to teach them how to do everything that I knew how to do, and I pretty much became the assistant to the chief, which was a very interesting role in itself because I learned exactly just how much paperwork a battalion goes through, which to me was all learning experience.
Right.
And it was a big headache, and I probably lost all my hair there. Trust me, I had to keep it short, otherwise I'm going to be pulling it all the time. It was an interesting effect. Then I got orders in 2008 to go to Headquarters Marine Corps over in Quantico, Virginia. At that time, I was a bit torn because my unit was about to deploy again to Iraq, and knowing that I was the only other clerk that knew everything that was going on, and they needed people to go to take the administrative positions while deployed, my sergeant major came over and he's like, hey, you need to extend. And I said, I already have orders. I can't do anything else. So I talked to my girlfriend at the time, and I told her, hey, this is what's going on. What do you think? She's like, no, come home. So I actually got out of Japan in March 2008, and I got to Quantico, Virginia, where I began my duties under MMEA 6, the enlisted retention assignment. So they deal with all the recruiters, all of the career counselors, the monitors, which are the people that issue orders for everybody as to where to go and how to do it. So I moved from a battalion, like a very, very low level, and made a huge jump all the way to Headquarters Marine Corps, which was a hectic process in itself, but again, learning experience, because even though it was very, very political, I knew that I needed to learn, and I needed to adapt, and I needed to evolve. So that was, everybody saw it as a bit of a challenge and a very scary one to everybody that I talked to when I got my orders and saying, hey, what do you think about Quantico? Can you tell me a little bit more about it? I heard all the bad jokes about, oh, you're going to be saluting all the time, there's going to be officers everywhere, and all you're going to do is making coffee. I didn't really pay attention to all of that. I mean, yeah, I didn't make coffee, but I did more than just that. When I got there, actually, I was greeted by my chief and my OIC, which was a lieutenant colonel. And I soon realized that I was going to work directly with an 05, and his boss was an 06, and that was pretty much my entire chain of command. So it was me, my chief, and then 2 high-level officers.
Mm-hmm.
So at that time, I was like, okay, I need to start being I need to start being a child, and I need to start being a little more mature. There's no time for game anymore. This is a very, very high ball game that I need to start playing, and I got to put my poker face on. So it was interesting. I learned a lot from there as well, and I went back to doing administration, so an 8 to 4, 8 to 5 job, except for Fridays whenever the general wanted to go play golf. Then we got the half a day. I loved it. It was really awesome. I learned a lot, and it was a very good decompression time, I would say. It gave me a lot of time to go back to my family. I would visit them pretty much every other weekend because I was so close. It was only a 7-hour drive,
Right.
8-hour drive, something like that. So I got lucky. I got very, very lucky when I went back to it. Sadly, by the time my re-enlistment came around, I could not stay in the MOS anymore because it was full.
Mm.
And I talked to my monitor and I told them what are my options. And I talked to my career planner and my career counselors, and I was like, what are my options? So they're like, either you get out or you change your job. And that's how I ended up going into communications.
And once you were in communications, that's when you went to Afghanistan?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so you served 2 tours of duty overseas in Afghanistan and Iraq. And you said a little bit about it, but can you tell me more about how you felt when you learned you were going to be deployed to Iraq? Because you were being separated from your unit, is that correct?
Half my unit, yes.
Okay.
It was interesting. I mean, it was scary at first, but at the same time, I was new to the unit. I didn't really know anybody, so there really was nothing holding me back. So I decided to look at it on the lighter side, glass half full, and I said, well, this is what I got to do. It's a whole different challenge. I'm going to go see a whole other country. I'm going to learn a lot more, so do it. Let's go. That's why I packed up my stuff that same day that I got the order. I mean, I didn't even really unpack.
Right, yeah.
So it was one of those, okay, I'll just put my CVs back in there and go. So it was scary, but very exciting at the same time.
And did you feel differently when you learned you were going to be deployed to Afghanistan?
A little bit, because by this time I already had a girlfriend, fiance. I was already planning, had other people dependent on me rather than just me. And as challenging as it was, and it was bittersweet. Excited once again to go back out and do what I needed to do. But at the same time, it was really hard to leave loved ones behind. But they understood and they supported me, both my girlfriend and her parents, because we had such a close relationship. And they were like, we can't stop you from doing what you need to do, from doing what you want to do. So it was a lot of help that they came out like that. So, yeah.
Okay. You were put in a quick reaction force in Iraq.
Yes.
And you mentioned that you were deployed kind of where you were needed.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe more about what exactly that meant?
Our schedule was very hectic. It was pretty much convoys would go out and they would bring out logistic support such as water, building materials, food, anything that all the units needed. So we were the ones to provide security for it. So we were be outside of the wire probably 02 in the morning.
Outside of the wire?
Leaving the base.
Okay.
And getting en route to go to another base to drop and whatever we were carrying. It was pretty much 02 in the morning till the mission was done. So there were times that it took us a few hours, other times it took us a few days, up to a week-long mission, depending on what we had to do.
And the whole time you would be traveling?
More or less, yes. We would travel, get to where we needed to go, drop off the stuff, figure out what else we needed to do, go back to base.
Were you traveling with civilians at this point?
No.
Everyone out on the
All
convoy
military.
would have been military?
Yes.
And were they all Marines or
Yes.
Army?
All
Okay.
Marines.
Okay. Where was the most difficult place you were deployed?
Afghanistan.
Because of that incident, or was there more to it?
It was
that
just all together. It was a lot more. It was I don't really know how to put it. kinetic, I would say. It was a lot more movement. It was a lot more threat. We had to react to a lot more. We had a bigger area of operation to take care of. Everybody had a very, very rough time with it. When it comes to our Motor T section, their vehicles were hitting IEDs, roadside bombs every day. Our infantry guys were separated from main headquarters, and they all had their own positions to man, and they were in the middle of nowhere, and they had no idea where the threat was coming from. All they knew was that they needed to react and needed to stay vigilant. So it was a lot more hectic than anything else I've ever encountered.
Okay. What kept you going while you were overseas?
Knowing that I was going to be home soon.
Really?
Yeah. That was my top priority. Going back, going home. I know I had my mission and I needed to take care of it, but I knew I always had somebody waiting for me. I knew I had people back here that were supporting me, and I needed to go back to them to let them know, one, I did my job, I did my duty, make them proud, and then just tell them all my stories and laugh about it afterwards.
And I hope you've been able to do that. Do you agree with why you were being deployed, and why or why not?
Do I agree? I can't really say yes or no on it because I wasn't really sure what the goal was. All we knew was that somebody started something, a war broke, and we needed to defend our country. That was everybody's belief. My belief, like I said before, is just do whatever my country needs done, serve my country well, make it proud, and then move on. Where my orders came from, it didn't really matter. All I know is that orders are orders and they need to be followed. Questioning is definitely out of the question. So it was just a matter of get your orders, do what you need to do, move on to the next task.
Okay. While you were deployed, there was a lot of political backpedaling on our efforts in Iraq and Afghanistan. How much did you know about this? And did they affect your job as a Marine?
Iraq, I wasn't really connected with the outside world, so I wasn't sure what was going on. Heard rumors every now and again, but that's all there is, rumors. They really have no ground to stand on, and definitely I would not use them for anything. Mm-hmm. That's like putting blanks on a gun and going to a firefight with them. That just makes no sense. Afghanistan, however, being a communicator, I had more access. I knew more, so I was more involved with what the unit was doing, what the battalion was doing, what we were doing all together. And even though I knew more about the news and what they were saying and general opinions from different entities or people altogether, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, right? Everybody can say whatever they want because of the Constitution and whatever else they want to quote. That gives them that right that we're fighting for. So, did I get mad about it? Not really. They can talk. Talk is cheap. Action speaks for itself. And they can go online. They can go on the news. They can always say, "Oh, this is bad. This is wrong. This is right." Doesn't really matter. The only thing that mattered to me was what we were doing that day, what we were doing in that area, and how it was going to affect us and the people that we were trying to protect.
So the political situation really didn't affect you on the ground?
No.
Are you, in Iraq, was it good that you didn't know, do you think? And in Afghanistan, you were kind of burdened with that? Or it didn't matter to you whether you knew, you didn't know, it was all the same to you?
It's all the same.
Okay. All right. I asked before if you had contact with the private contractors on the convoys. Did you have contact with private contractors at any other time during your deployments? And what do you think about that as a system?
Afghanistan, we were working with General Dynamics. They sent out their the field services guys to help us out with whatever we needed. We had that support, and they were, for the most part, very knowledgeable. Of course, everybody has the bad apple or that one guy, that 1%. But I love them. I love working with them. I think they're awesome. They are very, very helpful, and we know why we're there. Because one, we're ordered to. Two, because we believe in something greater than ourselves. And that's the main consent that I got from all the civilian contractors that I work with. That even though they're not part of the fight, they're not carrying a weapon, they have a very basic protection, helmet, plates. They still risk their life just like us. And I think that is very honorable in itself. Now, granted, some of them do it for the money. Others do it just because they want to do their part as well. So I had a very good experience with all of them.
That's good. When you learned you were rotating out of any given combat zone, how did you feel about that, leaving?
I was the very last one out every single time.
Oh, really?
Yes. Iraq, I was the very last group to leave, and I was glad to be the last person out because that meant that nobody else stayed and that I had more time to make sure that I didn't leave anything else behind or anything that could be used against us. Afghanistan, I was supposed to be the first one out, but after talking to my commander and talking to my chief, I said, no way. I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna do what I need to do. Send somebody else. And that's exactly what happened. A little bit torn about it. I mean, I didn't want to go see my family. I didn't want to come back home. I wanted to get the hell out of the hot sun. But at the same time, I figured, I've been here for 6-7 months already. A little bit more sand in my lungs would not hurt me. So I wanted that extra time to make sure that, one, everybody under me was already taken care of and they were already home. To make sure that all my job was completed, and if there was any questions, anything else, if anybody else need any help, that I was there to help as much as possible before I leave. 3, like I said, there was nobody else behind, so we all came together, we all left together.
So you felt good about that?
Yes.
Do you have any personal thoughts on Syria?
No.
Do you follow it in the news?
Yes. I know that they have a lot of conflicts. I do know that it's more of a civil war than anything else. However, if the United States wants to get involved with it, then they have their reasons, and I'm sure they can explain them. All I know is that orders will come for us to go. If we do go, we can't really question, we just have to do it.
Will you be called back into service?
No. I did my 8 years, so I have no inactive service anymore. But me and my wife have been toying with the idea of, if need be, going back in. Would I go Marine again? 9 out of 10, yes. If I don't do that, any other branch will do.
Would you try and be a civilian contractor?
Thought of that. I would, but it doesn't sit well with me, the idea that even though I will be in country, I will not be next to those people fighting, or I will not be able to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
And given the time, I will not be able to take somebody else's position. That way they can have a break. And that right there is more than enough a reason for me not to go
Right.
as a civilian contractor.
Okay. Now that you're home, do you keep up with military affairs in the news?
A little bit, not too much. There was a reason why I got out, and that was because one, I couldn't really stay in anymore because of new rules, and I was a sergeant. If you don't pick up staff sergeant E6 by a certain time, then you get kicked out anyways. Based on my situation, it wasn't a good idea for me to stay just for 2 years because that was all I was given.
Oh.
So I decided to get out. When I decided to get out, there was a question of what to do. My options were pretty simple: either go to school or go to work. And I realized this about a year before my contract ended, while I was still on my third deployment. And I talked to my wife about it.
I'm sorry, you said your third deployment?
I did a MU deployment in 2012. I was on a ship, the USS Iwo Jima.
Oh, okay. That's not on your bio, so.
Oh, I thought it was. So about a year before my contract ended, I told my wife, hey, these are our options. What do you think? And after discussing it with her and any other person involved, because if I was to get out, I was going to come back here. And if I was to come back here, we needed a place to stay. We had to get the parents involved. We had to get grandma involved because that's their house. So I decided to bring it up and make it a family decision and not just my own, because this will affect more than just me.
Right.
And when we decided was that since she's already went to college, she graduated and all of that, she knows the college side. So I didn't really need to do that. What I needed to focus on was work. So I started working on my resume, started gathering all the information that I needed, started figuring out what job markets were open, what job markets were good, what was stable, what wasn't stable. Trying to do all my research before I make a final decision on it all, put it all on the table, and we said, okay, which plan A, plan B, or plan Z? My first plan was go to college. Without an education nowadays, you can't really do much anyways. You need a bachelor's to go flip burgers nowadays. So college was top priority, and work was secondary. I knew everything about college from my wife. She taught me a lot, and I learned a lot from her, so I wasn't too worried. When I got back, that was my main focus. Start finding jobs, start making, put my name out there. So get a LinkedIn account, get a Monster account, usajobs.com, betjobs.com, every other website, trying to do as much networking as possible. And my family all kind of laughed at me at first, and they were a little confused as to why I was doing it so early. A year out, I mean, that's insane. That's not reasonable. Like, why are you doing this? Those were the questions that I was being asked all the time.
Really?
Which I responded, just let me do it. I have my reasons. There's a method to the madness. Even though I'm doing it a year early, if they see it now, they're just going to be like, oh, he's got a year left. They're not, who cares?
Right.
But 6 months, 3 months before I get out, they're going to see that name again, and they're like, oh, this guy was a year out, and he was already doing his research. So this means that there's something more to him than just him trying to find a job or whatever else they would think. And that was my reason behind it all. And at the time, they were like, okay, I don't know if it's going to work or not, but we'll believe you. And when I started, actually seeing results from all my efforts, they were like, oh, now we understand it. So I was like, well, now you know the method to my madness.
You're a man who doesn't jump just to jump.
Look before you leap.
Yes. Is the job search your biggest adjustment between the military and coming back into civilian life, or did you have a bigger adjustment to make?
Definitely a bigger adjustment. There are so many factors when you get out of the military. Some people see it from a good way, some people see it from a bad way. It all depends on the person and how they view life altogether, to be honest. Some people just decide to seclude themselves, and they're like, oh, well, I'm out of the military, nobody will understand, and that's the wrong attitude to have. I'm not saying, you need to change it, because there may be some underlying factors behind it. But if you change your view and think about it, then you can definitely move on. One of the biggest challenges that I got was being in for 8 years, knowing that I was going to lose that chain of command, I was going to lose that structured life that I lived for 8 years out of high school was intimidating. And I looked at it and said, you know, either A, I can go crawl in the corner and cry to death, or B, I can do something about it. Be proactive. Don't be reactive. That's one of my biggest things. And I decided, well, if nobody's going to give me a structure, then I'll just do one of my own. So I structured myself. I became my own boss. I became my own chain of command. And that was the biggest one. The second one, since I was in an infantry battalion, males only, for the last 4 years of my life, it was a bit challenging to talk to anybody other than a male. Trust me, I get such a weird look when I say that, but it's the truth. And I started realizing that about 8 months before my contract was up, when I was talking to one of my staff sergeants, and I was like, you know, I'm gonna get out soon. I don't really know how to talk to anybody else but military personnel. I need to change that, because I don't want to be the weirdo that gets out and doesn't know what the hell is talking about. You know, I don't want to be the guy that comes out and, you know, comes out with all the military terminology that nobody really knows. I want to be able to be eloquent. I want to be able to be clear of what I want to say and get my point across. And I also need to start interacting with people, because I know job hunting is going to be all of that. I need to know how to do interviews. I need to know. It was just that I need to know. That was my main driving point. I need to know how to do what I need to do when I get out.
Now, you mentioned that you hadn't talked to any females for a while. There are females in the Marines. Were they just not in the infantry unit because of its combat?
Yes.
But they weren't necessarily even behind the scenes as support personnel?
Infantry battalion doesn't have females. The only time that females are attached to an infantry battalion is with the female engagement team. But they're not infantry. Now, the Marine Corps is going through a few changes where they are making females go through infantry training and all that other stuff, but that happened after I got out.
I see.
Very, very minimal interaction, slim to none, all the time. And most of them were somewhere else. I couldn't tell you where, to be honest. But I realized that was going to be one of the biggest issues. And I realized, you know, like, we all know the military language. We all know it can get filthy at times and very, very inappropriate. And I just didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want to be the one cursing in an interview and blowing my chances, or, you know, say the wrong thing, offend somebody the wrong way without even realizing it. The next thing I know, I got a problem in my hands.
Right.
So that's when I decided, okay, it's time to re-educate myself. So.
And how has being back in school benefited or not benefited that adjustment?
It benefited greatly. Trust me. The one thing that I was being told was that you're not going to be in the military. Don't expect the same treatment. They don't have the same customs and courtesies. They don't have the same discipline as
Who
a
told
military
you
member. Quite a few people, actually, mostly my in-laws, my wife, a few of the Marines that I knew that got out prior. It was just really good advice from every front, and they all had the same thing. They're not military personnel. Don't treat them like that, because one, you're gonna get in trouble. Two, you're not gonna get the good results. So knowing all of that and preparing myself for all of this actually benefited me a lot. Now I know, you know, on a group experiment, on a group assignment, I'm not gonna be the one leading the whole thing. I know how to follow. I know how to lead. I know both sides, and I know that if somebody doesn't do it the way I want it done, then instead of shouting commands at them, I know to sit down and speak to them and let them know, okay, this is how I think it would happen, instead of going, this is how it needs to get done. Two very different reactions can come from that. And if you want good results, you will take the appropriate one. So it helped.
Excellent. What is the biggest lesson you learned in your time in the military? And when you look back over your military career, what, if anything, are you most proud of?
Becoming self-sufficient has definitely
Becoming self-sufficient.
Yes.
Okay.
Be your own person. Be your own support. Because even though you can count on people to the left and right of you, ultimately the only person that really cares about yourself is yourself. And that carries on not just in the military, but actually in civilian life. Because you're not always going to count on that person to the right of you in philosophy class to make sure that you are up in time to go to class, or that you turn in your assignment in time. Right. They don't care. I don't care. You know, it's just, you have to be self-sufficient. You have to be resourceful, because one of the things that has really gotten my attention and I started questioning is I see veterans that come to Salem State that have absolutely no idea what's going on, and they have absolutely no idea how to navigate through the halls or how to talk to certain people, or they don't really know. And instead of them going out and searching for the information or trying to figure out a different way to approach a problem, they just roll up into a ball and they go cry in the corner until they die. And I'm actually glad I'm not one of those persons, because if I was, then I definitely wouldn't be doing this.
What, if anything, would you change if you could?
Change as far as?
Anything in the military career.
In my military career?
Yeah.
Definitely change the fact that I didn't start school while I was in. That is.
You could start school while you were in the military?
Yes. The military will, as far as I remember, tuition assistance, they can help you with it. So you can either do online courses, and they have plenty of colleges that will help you, like AMU, it's like American Military University, I believe. Phoenix, University of Phoenix, they can help you with that. I know Coastal Carolina Community Service, when I was down in North Carolina, can help you with it. And they have resources on base for you to go to classes on base. I didn't know any of that until I was led into the game. I mean, had I known, I probably would have had a bachelor's degree by now. And that was one of the biggest things that I regret not doing. And I think it was because of the fact that, one, at the time I wasn't self-sufficient, I wasn't resourceful, which is one of the reasons why I am now. And two, even though they publicize it, the information doesn't really get to the lower echelons, the lower people in the totem pole. So we need to spread this more and more to the military personnel that are still active duty. Same benefits that the veterans, some of the veterans may not know about what the veteran benefits are.
Right.
And you know, we have a great veteran organization here. We have Sam O'Shaughnessy, Ted Saracensky. They're a great source of information, but I don't really see everybody going to their offices on a daily basis to figure out what is going on and what else can they get.
Right. Now, these are like private individuals and private groups through the university that
Yes.
you're talking about. Have you done any work with anything through the government that's veterans benefits?
The VA, Veterans Affairs, yes, I've done a lot of work with them. Actually put some of my disability claims through them, and they've been a lot of help. And I learn more and more every time I go there.
Oh, good. What is your opinion on non-U.S. citizens gaining citizenship through the military?
I was one of them. Actually, it was a kind of funny story. I didn't know that you could put in for a citizenship request while you were in the military. I found that out when I was in Iraq. I actually set up my paperwork while I was in Iraq too. Trust me, getting fingerprints in Iraq is pretty challenging in itself. But I put it through. A year later, I received a letter while I was in Japan saying your paperwork has been approved. You need to come in and do a couple other things, interviews, and we'll push your paperwork through and get it done. I did all of that, and I got my citizenship while I was stationed in Japan. I swore in. There was a 2-star general that came over and did the whole ceremony for us, and That was it. Now, my take on it, well, you can really look at it two ways. I mean, you got the people that are just doing it for the citizenship, and you got people like me that didn't even think about it until they were already in. Yes, it is a great idea because one, they are serving in the military and they are paying their dues. So it's a very good thing that they're doing it. Two, I think that's brings an incentive for them to do more because they know that, okay, we're not just here just to take advantage of the country and then leave. And I think that, that's what a lot of people believe about non-citizens in the U.S., that they just come in here and they take all their money and they send it back to the country of origin, and that's it, that's all they're here for. That's not always the case.
Right.
So I think it's a very good idea. It's a really good opportunity for them, and they definitely need to be taken advantage of as much as possible.
And kind of related to that, what do you think about the DREAM Act?
Sorry?
The DREAM Act, where kids who were taken from their country of origin when they were very young and their parents brought them here, and they're technically illegal aliens, and if they go to school or they join the military or something, then they can also become citizens by virtue of the fact that they've been here for a long time and that they've done something productive like the military. Or what do you think about that as a...
I think it's a very good program. I mean, if you really think about it, it's not the kid's fault. He didn't decide, okay, I'm going to the United States and illegally and, just go to the school. It wasn't their decision at all. However, if they're the ones going into the military, then they figured out, they consciously realized, okay, I'm here illegally. I got brought in here. I need to do something. I need to do something with myself. And, some people get accustomed to the life here already, so they don't want to lose that. They want to keep it. And if they make the conscious decision to go into the military and serve and get their citizenship from there, then I don't see why not. What's the problem? They're doing something productive. They're not taking advantage of the country. They're trying to help it. So let them do it.
Now that we've come to the end of the interview, is there a question you would have liked to have been asked? And if so, how would you answer your own question?
The one question that I really wish I would have been asked is, how do I feel about the veteran presence in school in Salem State? I know that Salem State is a great school when it comes to veteran support. I do know that the president is very pro-military and she loves us, at least that's what I've been told. And I really wish I had a chance to meet her so I could actually verify that information. But the more I see and I make my way around the campus, I don't really see much military support as far as visually seeing it. I do know the school has a veterans center. Veterans center project. That's what the veterans group, veteran organization is trying to work on. I know they have a Veterans Affairs office. They have Ted Sarasinski, Samuel O'Shaughnessy. They're great people. They're great resources. And I know that the school also has the Veterans Hall at Ellison campus, but there really are nothing showing where it is. There is nothing visible. And to me, if you show something, put a banner or put directions or put a picture, it speaks a lot more to everybody, because then if you see something new that you didn't see before, people are prone to go and take a look at it, and then they know. I actually realized that doing the combat paper project that the school is doing.
The what?
It's a combat paper project.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty much where the veterans donate their uniform. They pretty much shred it and make it paper, and then they can print whatever they want on it.
Oh, neat.
And that has attracted a lot of people as well. The reason why I wish that question was asked is because I don't think the school knows as a whole that we're here. I mean, a few people here and there know. I know that when I reveal myself as a veteran in some of my classes, I get the weird looks. I get one or two answers. I either get the, yeah, I know everybody in the military, I know some people, and maybe you know them, or I get the, oh, you're a veteran, whatever. I think it's very important that they need to know that we're here, and we need to have a more stronger presence, because we can bring a lot into the table. We have a lot of knowledge, we have a lot of support, we have a lot of leadership styles that we can bring to any other organization, to the school itself. And I really wanted to take, I really wanted to feel how the school views us, how the school sees us, and what their opinion is on us, from faculty members to students themselves. And I don't know, I just really want to be able to do more for the school. And I think that is something that we need to really, really look at and come up with an idea and put it to action, not just wishful thinking.
Well, I think you're a great representative for that. And I want to thank you so much, Guillermo. It was
No
a wonderful
problem.
interview. It was wonderful meeting you. Thank you.
Thank you.